everybody. Thanks for joining us again. We're glad you're here. Kathy has a really great topic for us. So let's get started with prayer, shall we? Father, Mother God, we thank you for this time together. We thank you for this venue and the ability to reach so many of your children, so many of those that you love so deeply in this way, and to share your words that come through us. And we are just so filled with your love that we have to spread it to the rest of the world. We are compelled to do so, and we are glad that we're doing this together. So thank you, God. Thank you, thank you. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, Kathy.
Hello, everybody and our listening audience. I'm really excited to share this book. Now, I don't even know where I heard about it, but somewhere it triggered me and I ordered it. And it's a book I think we should all have. Okay, I'm going to show it to you here. It's called Together, and it's written by Vivek Murthy, MD. He was the 19th Surgeon General of the United States. And it's called Together, the Healing Power of the Human Connection in a Sometimes Lonely World. Now, I don't know about you, but when COVID hit, after a while, things were shutting down. Things that I was a part of were shutting down. And I was really feeling this loss of connection. And I was just sort of grieving this. So get this. Okay, here's the author's note. He writes, "This is a book about the importance of human connection, the hidden impact of loneliness on our health, and the social power of community. As a physician, I have felt compelled to address these issues because of the rising physical and emotional toll of disconnection that I've watched throughout society over the past few decades. What I could not anticipate, however, was the unprecedented test that our global community would face just as this book was going to press." And guess what that was? COVID-19. In the first weeks of 2020, the pandemic turned physical human contact into a potentially mortal threat. The novel coronavirus was on the loose like an invisible stalker, and any of our fellow human beings could have been its carrier. So those are really strong words. And I'm like, yeah, I guess I wasn't the only one that was experiencing that. So he goes on to say, in some cases, loneliness was driving health problems. In others, it was a consequence of the illness and the hardships that people were experiencing. It wasn't always easy to tease out cause and effect, but clearly there was something about our disconnection from one another that was making people's lives worse than they had ever been. This is profound. Okay, according to a report, in a 2018 report by the Henry Kaiser Foundation, 22% of all adults in the US say they often or always feel lonely or socially isolated. Do you know that that's well over 55 million people, far more than the number of adult cigarette smokers and nearly double the number of people who have diabetes? That's a huge number. So there again, I'm feeling like, wow, I'm not the only one experiencing this. A 2018 AARP study using the rigorously validated UCLA scale found that 1 in 3 Americans, adults over the age of 45, are lonely. It goes on to say, as intractable as the cycle of loneliness may seem, however, it can be interrupted. By learning to recognize and address the signals early, we can intervene to forge connections when loneliness strikes, instead of following it to become a constant in our human lives. A first step is to acknowledge the vital need that all humans have, that we all desperately have, for social connection. Quite simply, get this is powerful. Human relationship is essential to our well-being as food and water. Just as hunger and thirst are our body's ways of telling us what we need to eat and drink, loneliness is the natural signal that reminds us when we need to connect with other people. It's hardwired in us. Dr. Julian Holt Hunstad, a member of the faculty at Brigham Young University, found that many inside and outside academia were skeptical about her whole area of inquiry. They thought it was all fluff, right? So she does this study and she found that the impact of lacking social connection on reducing lifespan is equal to the risk, get this, equal to the risk of smoking 15 cigarettes a day. And it's greater than the risk associated with obesity, excess alcohol consumption, and lack of exercise. So simply put, Julianne had found that weak social connections, can be a significant danger to our health. So these are not just thoughts that people are having. This book is just, I'm amazed. It's filled with scientific proof of how important our human connectedness is. Let's see, there's so much stuff in here. I could read you the whole book, but then I know you wouldn't listen. Okay, here's a chapter on Dr. Loneliness. The late Dr. John Cacapio was the first to liken loneliness to hunger and thirst, identifying it as a necessary warning signal with biochemical and genetic notes. His work was regarded as so central to the field that many called him Dr. Loneliness. All right. So his evolutionary theory of loneliness was rooted in the observation that humans have survived as a species, not because we have physical advantages like size and strength or speed, but because of our ability to connect in social groups. We exchange ideas, we coordinate goals, we share information and emotions. Our strength is our ability to communicate and work together. And that's what he came up with, Dr. Loneliness. So there's so much more, but I know we don't have all the time, but I'd like to just read this last part. It says, creating a connected life begins with the decisions we make in our day-to-day lives. Do we choose to make time for people? Do we show up as our true selves? Do we seek out others with kindness, recognizing the power of service to bring us together? And at the end of the book, they have comments from different people. And this one came from Malcolm Gladwell. He said, Dr. Murphy reminds us that our national conversation about medicine has been too narrowly focused on hospitals, doctors, and drugs, and not enough on the human connections that sustains us all. So I found this to be a very powerful book. I hope you have a chance to read it. But what do you ladies think about what I just read?
I totally get it. And this pandemic has been and continues to be the severing, it's like instantly. All the disconnecting we had before that seems to have sped up exponentially because of this automatically shelter in place kind of thing. And it reminds me of when I'm pretty sure everybody took this. If anybody took psych class before, you probably remember the case where they had, back in the 50s, they had the Russian orphanage and they decided to test these infants 1 and under. What they did was they were all in one room and nobody would go in there unless they needed a diaper change, a bottle, and that was it. They were not allowed to touch the children. Okay, none of them lived. None of them survived the experiment because within weeks, because of the lack of touch, because of the lack of connection, they were still having their needs met. They had clean clothes and they had their bottles and they were being fed, but they didn't have any of the nurturing. They actually all perished. When you were reading this just now, that immediately came back and I got chills all over my body because it is so true. And I mean, even during this pandemic, like for instance, we thought that Samantha had contacted COVID. So immediately I told her, go to your room and don't come out. And you should have seen her face. Like I could have said nothing more to harm her. I wasn't trying to, but I was just like, look, you need to isolate in your room. And she's like, but grandma, and I was like, we need to talk, because if you do, then this was last year, So, but it's a nurturing thing. It's a connection thing. And even if we're not touching, being there with a person. This is great. I love this. I love seeing you guys, and I'm not able to reach out and touch you. But if this is all I had, it wouldn't be as nurturing as if I could meet you at church, or I could meet you at a coffee house, or just talk to you in the street or in a mall or whatever. And I really believe it. I like the name of that book. I may have to look that up myself. So thank you for bringing that up, Kathy. I really appreciate the insight.
So I'll go. I find it very interesting that this book being written from especially Surgeon General's point of view about the human connection and going from the Western medicine of, drugs and pills and, identifying, illnesses are all about, something that's physically going on rather than what's emotionally going on, what's the whole of the body. And for this to come out and really see that it isn't just about writing another prescription, it's about recognizing, that the person maybe just needs to get a hug once in a while, and, or just having some human contact or something that gives them a purpose in life, that gives them the will to want to keep living. And I think it's just wonderful to hear, the medical field addressing that it's human connection that's so important. And for me, just when we shut down, it was that part of like cocooning. And some part of that is making connection within myself, is just getting really in touch with myself, having that quiet time. And also the other thing it did was, for a lot of families, everybody was going their own ways. And when they had to shelter in place, the families had to now connect, now had to find out and find things to do together and to be together. So, there was the plus side of the stay in place, and it was making that connection and bringing it together. But for the children not to be in school and with their friends and with their peers, it was, it really set them back a lot. And, it's that importance of having that connection. And I think it's wonderful that they're doing more studies to say, people that aren't being connected, emotionally with people or activities have a higher risk of health issues than smoking. And sometimes those addictive behaviors are because they're not connecting with people, that becomes their substitute for that human touch and that human thing. Just recently, we saw some friends, and she's a hugger. She gives a nice big bear hug. And, with COVID, it's like everybody's sort of still tenuous, like, do we hug? Do we get that close? This one was just came in for a hug, and I just could feel my whole body just go, oh, that's so nice, and just fell into that hug, and it sort of was like getting back to doing, having that human connection and being able to say, it is about what we feel emotionally that brings us our healing. So thank you for sharing that, Kathy.
Well, I guess it's my turn. This is not my strong suit. I do not connect well, which might seem crazy because I seem to have connections everywhere, but I don't recognize within me that I have a need to connect. And this is going to sound so arrogant, but I try and be tolerant and supportive of people who need to connect with me. So I've got it all backwards. And I know that I need to work on this. So I have, through the church and all the wonderful people in the community, but I'm way outside my comfort zone when I go to groups, when I go to the brown bag lunch, when I go to anything where there's people, there's people out there. And I have learned that I didn't know how much I needed connections. I don't relate with lonely. If I feel lonely, I'm thinking it's something else. I don't relate with that. But especially through some of the women's groups that we've done, not to be, sexist, but at the church, I have found that I do need connections. I was just completely unaware that I needed that, but I walk away feeling like that was so much fun. And I can't wait to do it again when it's always been, oh, now I have to go do this. Okay, I'll go and I'll be here and then I'll leave. And it's really changed and turned around. But for me, I had to do it for a while before I realized the incredible benefit from it. So I don't know if anybody can relate to that or not. I can say I am so grateful for Unity of El Cajon in teaching me how valuable it is to have those incredible connections and friendships. And I'm so grateful.
Yes, so thank you everyone for joining us, and let's close in prayer. We are so grateful for these topics that are come to us and that we share and open ourselves up to, sharing this wisdom and guidance. And we appreciate Kathy finding this book and enlightening us as to how the medical profession sees the importance of connection and how by connecting with each other, we enrich each other's lives. We thank you for these blessings, and we continue to carry forth your good works in the world. Amen. Well, we want to thank everybody for joining us today, and please remember to like us or, put a comment if this, related to you or you have your own thoughts on connections, and we'd like to hear from you, and please join us again. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us, and let's stay connected and grow in spirit. We are on Facebook. Search for Unity Church of El Cajon and follow us and like our posts. You can reach us on YouTube at Unity Church of El Cajon. Please subscribe to our channel, watch our videos, and leave comments which can help us improve. We are on the web at unityofelcajon.org. Email or call our church office to receive our weekly newsletters, which lists all of our activities and opportunities to learn and grow together.